Welcome to Bite Size Green, where a healthy body, a healthy planet, and delicious food are all on the same menu. I'm your host, Angelina Le Grix, and today we have beekeeper Wayne Pitts of the U.S. Gold Apiary from Gilroy joining us.
Most people's experience with honeybees is that there's a swarm comes, and what they see is this big cloud of bees. And it's really noisy because they're flying through the air. And of course that makes noise when they fly through the air.
Right.
And because people are not familiar with bees or are not used to seeing bees around, it kind of scares them. People ask me, aren't you going to put a suit on? The thing about swarms is, before they left the hive, they knew that it was going to be maybe a week before they'd eat again.
Okay. So
they fill themselves up with honey. And how are people after Thanksgiving?
Pretty lethargic.
Yeah, they want to sleep, right? So the bees are not really ready to bother anyone. They're there, they're waiting, they have no brood, which are the babies to protect. They're just there. We can use movable frames, and we can actually manage the bees. We can move the bee frames around to optimize the conditions for it, and it helps the bees themselves by the fact that they're being managed. We have a mite that's in the United States now, when it's just emerged, acts like a tick to the bees, and it sits there and sucks the blood out of the bee while the bee is developing. And what that does is weaken the bee, and it also vectors in viruses and things. So you may have heard of colony collapse disorder.
Yes.
Colony collapse disorder is when you go out to a hive and it is perfect. I mean, it is going great. And you go out 2 weeks later and there's no bees there. And what has happened there, we think it's nutrition based, and that these viruses and the mite are decreasing the amount of nutrition the bee is getting, so it's not living as long. And you think about it, if you're a baby and you have something sucking the blood out of you, you're not going to grow as big as you would if it wasn't. Okay. So by having movable frames like this, we can actually manage the bees. Now, how do we handle the varroa mite? The easiest way is we use a screened bottom board, because these mites, when they're on the bee, they're shaped like a crab. They got little legs like crabs do, and they ride on the shoulders of the bees. And if we sprinkle powdered sugar on the hive, this powdered sugar gets on the bees and causes the mite to lose its grip, falls out the bottom of the hive. And it can't crawl back up in there. It has to hitch a ride on another bee. Okay. And the bees, wanting to get this powdered sugar off of them, are grooming each other, and that helps get the mites off also. So if you treat with powdered sugar every couple of weeks, you're knocking down the adult mites. By knocking down the adult mites, there's fewer mites to be raising children or raising young mites. Some beekeepers, I don't, but some beekeepers use chemicals to try to contain this. And what we discovered is if you have one female mite survive, since her offspring are going to mate, within a year, they're resistant to that chemical. Mm-hmm. So basically what we have decided, we being the collective community of the beekeepers, is we got to get off the chemical path. So now people are moving away from it. This is a picture of a drone, and we show him first because there's about 5% of the bees in a hive are drones. They're the males that mate with a female. And the thing about this, you notice how large his wings are and how big his eyes are, because bees, drones and queens mate about 100 feet off the ground. And the drone has to be able to see this little tiny bug flying around to mate with her. And then once he mates with her, he dies, and she'll mate up with up to 13 to 50 drones. The average is about 20. Contrast that with a queen. This is the queen. And what I want to show you here is the size of the worker bee. This is a worker, and this is the queen. And I'm going to use my fingers to gauge this. And I'll move over to here, and you can see that the queen's about 1/3 bigger than a worker bee. All of this apparatus, the abdomen here, is full of ovules, which are egg-laying machines. She lays an egg a minute during the summer.
That's amazing. 1,500
a day. This is a picture of the queen's court, which is all the worker bees surrounding the queen. And what we have here is, you notice, by the way, these are the bees' noses. We have the bees touching the queen. Queens and bees have pheromones that they communicate with. Pheromones are, that's a 50-cent word for smells. They use these pheromones. The queen has 10 that's unique to her, and then they share the other 30. And what happens here is, you notice how this bee is touching the queen and this bee is touching the queen. These bees will only stay there for about a minute, and then they'll move away. And then another bee will touch this bee and find out, yes, there's queen pheromone there. So in a space of 24 hours, every one of the 50,000 bees in the hive know the queen is healthy. If the queen dies within 24 hours, all the bees know the queen's not there anymore.
And are these bees making honey, or?
They're swapping spit.
Okay.
And what it is in a beehive, you have the workers, and they go out and gather the nectar, and they bring it back to the hive. And that jar of honey over there is 1 pound of honey. It took 1 million trips to make that pound of honey.
Wow.